Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you all for being here and welcome to the CAFÉ Research Coordinating Center and to our introduction to what is the RCC. So a brief outline of what we're going to talk about today is as follows. We're going to start with a brief overview of CAFÉ as a research coordinating center and tell you a little bit about who is in the climate change and health community of practice. And then we're going to go through a number of resources and assets available through the CAFÉ now and in the near future. Okay, so first let me start with just to say that our CAFÉ, if you're on the previous session, you already know that this stands for to convene, accelerate, foster, and expand the community of practice. And broadly, what we're trying to achieve is to create a research coordinating center that can accelerate the pace of research and translation in climate change and health by supporting the growing the community of practice. And we have here a few words about what we mean by each of these functions, but as you'll see in the subsequent slides, we have concrete actions under each one. So just a little bit about our organizational principles. So this coordinating center is led by myself and my close colleagues, Francesca Dominici at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, and Amrita Nori Sarma here at Boston University in the Department of Environmental Health. And we are supported and partnered with a number of different external organizations. So there's an external advisory board, which I'll share with you who's on that. There's the NIH steering committee. There's the Alliance for Community Engagement in Climate Change and Health that we partner with. And then we have staff as part of CAFÉ to help all this happen. And then internally, we divide our activities into an administrative function, as well as a data management function, a resource function, and a capacity building function. But that's more internally. Externally, we're just going to focus on the resources that we can provide the community. So here are some of the faces of the leadership team. Again, myself and the two co-PIs with whom we work closely on a near daily basis. And then you can see a number of individuals from Harvard and from BU leading each of the co-leading each of the functions. We have a nice co-leadership model. So each one of our pillars is co-led by two individuals, including the research function has 3 individuals, and each one of these functions is co-led by somebody at BU and somebody at Harvard. We have a very large number of people to thank and acknowledge for their partnership and their work with us. So I won't read through each of the names, but you can see a large number of folks at both BU and at Harvard. And you can see also who we collaborate with very closely at NIH. So this is a cooperative agreement between our institutions and NIH, which means that we get the benefit of significant input from the NIH steering committee, as well as the individuals that you see listed there. We have to acknowledge the wonderful support we have, not just from the individuals at our institutions, but also from the sort of infrastructure from a number of institutions that this is built, including the Harvard Dataverse, the Institute for Quantitative Social Science at Harvard, the Harvard Data Science Initiative, the BU Institute for Global Sustainability, as well as the Schools of Public Health at BU and at Harvard. I wanted to share with you the names of our external advisory board. This is spans a number of different sectors, as you'll see who's in our community of practice, but this is not just academics or moving beyond academics to include diversity in terms of geography, as well as expertise and ways of engaging with the broader community of practice. And you'll be hearing more about the external advisory board throughout this conference and beyond. So our goal was really to support and expand the community of practice, so it makes sense to ask who is in the community of practice. And initially, we wanted to reach out to funded NIH researchers, those that responded to our initial request for people to complete our intake form and let us know that they're interested in engaging, as well as some initial partners and stakeholders that helped us during the putting together the grant application. Beyond that, we wanted then to explain to those who have applied for and subsequently been funded for under the NIH P20 program, and as well as participants of this event, additional partners and stakeholders. And more broadly, as we continue to grow the community of practice, we want to expand to all those interested in applying for NIH funding and continue to grow our additional partners and stakeholders, both in the research community and beyond. So broadly, who is the CUP? It's really anyone who is professionally interested in climate and health, and it includes academic researchers, those working in healthcare, government agencies, non-governmental organizations, funding agencies, community-based organizations, industries, foundations, and more. And so far, we have about 1,300 plus members that have completed our intake form. And you can see that the distribution is about half from academia or academic research, with a significant involvement from government agencies at the federal, state, and local government, NGOs, healthcare workers, international organizations, and so forth. In terms of where people are working in or coming from, about 3/4 are in North America, which includes US, Canada, and the Caribbean, and then about 25% from the rest, with large representation from Asia, Africa, and smaller representation from other continents. In terms of professional interest, there's not one dominant category. There's folks are interested in a large range of areas, and this is good news because, as was said by the NIH directors in the previous session, really we have to be not thinking about climate change as in having representing one threat, but rather a multitude of threats that need to be taken in together. So it's really heartening to see that there's such a diversity of interests in the existing community of practice. So at the conference here, we're really excited. I mean, this conference we envisioned as a platform for fostering conversations that may not be happening at this level in other settings. And so many of the sessions you'll see throughout this conference were actually suggested by the community members who put out a call and said, hey, if you want to lead a session and have a topic in mind, let us know. And we were pleased with the overwhelming interest. We have 56 sessions, which include these speed networking sessions, panel discussions, poster presentations, roundtable discussions, and workshops put on by CAFÉ. So we encourage you to take advantage of all of these great offerings. As we've mentioned before, all content except the roundtables and speed networking events will be recorded and available for a year after the end of the conference. Okay, so now I'm going to pass it on to Leila to talk about community resources.
Thank you, Greg. Hi, everyone. My name is Leila Kamareddine, and I'll be presenting on the
Leila, I think we lost your audio. Or was it moved?
No, we lost Leila, but there we go. It's back.
Oh, okay. I don't hear Leila, but I hear Kevin.
Yeah. Thank you, Mickey. Just like any conference, we're working out the kinks in the first two sessions. Oh. Hey, Leila, while you're working on that, Greg, do you want to go down?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Exactly. So we'll come back once Leila's there. I'll see if you're good to go. Excellent. So thanks a lot, Greg. And we'll come back around and Leila can talk to you a little bit more about the community of practice and the numbers there. But my name's Kevin Lane. For those that don't know me, I'm assistant professor in the Department of Environmental Health at the Boston University School of Public Health. And really, I'm the co-lead on the CAFÉ data management side, along with Danielle Braun at the Harvard School of Public Health. And really, it's a pleasure on behalf of the whole data management team to be able to share with you some of the related resources. And we're really excited because we just launched a couple of these things just over the last 2 weeks to make them publicly available that we want to talk about in terms of providing some initial resources and examples of where we would like to go in terms of interacting more with the community of practice and starting to get your feedback as a practitioner in terms of how we can improve what we're providing as related resources. Greg, you want to go to the next slide? Thanks. Now, to begin with, one of the key elements that we're trying to do here is really focus on data sharing as well as code sharing opportunities. And a key objective of the data management is to bring the community of practice together in ways that we can share data, identify what are the data needs, common elements, the development and promotion of data science, software tools, and code so we can help accelerate the pace of climate health-based research. And a couple other groups that we're talking with and collaborating with, like CORDS, Crisis Ready, a number of different groups are producing their own repositories as well as data sets and code systems. And we're trying to work and create these networks that would allow for cross linkages. What we're working in terms of our sharing environment for tutorials, as well as a code sharing data management approach, is the utilization of GitHub. And we just launched our Climate Cafe GitHub with URL that's posted here if you would like to go and visit it. And don't worry if you're not familiar with working with GitHub, we actually are going to have a session later on that we're trying to do in terms of introductions to GitHub to come after these conferences as well. So it's a key element we're trying to focus on. Now, with our GitHub, that's going to be a central place that we're hoping to be able to share not only our code and tutorials, but also get other people involved in terms of identifying what are the next most common data elements and needs. Greg, you want to go to the next slide? Thanks. In addition to that, we're creating an open source repository. And for our purposes, we're utilizing the Harvard Dataverse, which is an open source, already established, NIH supported generalist data repository. And it allows us to build collections and sub-collections within that system. It follows the FAIR principle, so it's all about trying to get data out and creating a system by which people can easily reuse and replicate their work. Additionally, one of the key things is with our collection is we're trying to curate and process commonly used climate health data and linkages. We're currently focusing a lot on spatial data linkages and common data sources so we can have code in our GitHub, but then also the Dataverse as a place for the repository to be set up. And we really are hoping to get your input. I'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes and ways that we could get input from you more directly and how we can start to develop that line of communication more directly. And a key element here is it's not just about us doing the work. We strongly want to encourage the community to adopt these principles and to work with us to contribute in data sharing and reuse. So with that in mind, we also are interested in developing a mechanism for which other researchers would want to and be able to deposit and share their data if they don't already have a data system or repository set up for them to work in. And one of the key things what we're trying to do is create academic credit for it. So you can get a DOI that would be citable if you were to put your data sets up in the environment and somebody else uses them, they'd be required to cite them. Also adherent to what is our data management template, which we'll talk about later on as well. And at some other sessions, one being on Wednesday on integration with NIH's data management sharing plan approaches. Greg? Next slide. Thank you. If you haven't been to the Dataverse collection, right here, you can see our URL. It's dataverse.harvard.edu/dataverse/cafe. And you can go in here and you can start to get involved and identify what is up. We've put up some test data sets really so that you can get an understanding of what that environment would look like. We also, very importantly, has started to develop easy to follow steps so that you can create your own sort of Dataverse collection update piece within our system as well. So on our GitHub, we have some tutorials and instructions that will take you through the process of being able to bring in your data to the Dataverse environment as well. All you have to do is create an account, and then you can follow the tutorials and start to post your own data and get in the sharing environment. Greg, can you go to the next slide? And here's an example of one that we recently have put up around wildfire smoke PM2.5 at a zip code scale across a number of different years. So it's a commonly used data set. And as you can see, the curators and creators of the data set are able to put up their DOI here and be able to utilize that in publications and citations. Additionally, we have descriptions that we put in, as well as we're developing metadata requirements on things like mesh terms and other pieces with other groups as well. That way we can create cross linkages between these different systems and make it so it's easier for people to find each other's data as well as tutorials and training materials. And one key thing to note also is that Dataverse is not really in terms of our collection, we're not trying to become a grab everyone else's stuff and bring it to this environment. It also would allow you, if you already have your infrastructure set up, you're hosting your data set in another place, you could create a card or work with us to create a card that will point users to your data set via URL. That way you can also have people traffic in that environment as well. Greg, can you go to the next slide? In terms of contributing data overall, we have our tutorial already set up on our GitHub, as you can see on the right-hand side. If you'd like to visit it, we're trying to get feedback initially on also, is the tutorial set up well enough so that you can work independently, or do you need more feedback from us? So we'd love to hear from you all, the community, about that process if you're interested in adding data into our Dataverse system. Another key thing we're trying to do, Greg, can you go to the next slide? Is expand our tutorial and code walkthroughs as well. And we're collaborating with some other groups like Chords in terms of trying to make sure that we're not overlapping in terms of our data and our processes. We focused a lot more on the data processing elements initially in that spatial resolution. But we also, in addition to having some initial code and processes set up, we also have an under development section. This is a key area where we'd love to learn from the community about what are the common data sets that we should be focusing on first as well. Greg? In terms of some other processes that we're working with, a key one is related to the NIH data management and sharing policy. As you saw last year, there was the release of the new data management and sharing policy that really is trying to promote scientific sharing of data. And we're trying to also do that by having it be integrated in with the Harvard Dataverse, especially on this topic of climate and health. So what we're doing is provide an NIH data management and sharing policy template for integration with the CAFÉ community. And you can find that initial information at our GitHub already. That's something that we worked on right away, and we've already been trying to communicate and share that information. There will also be a session on Wednesday that will talk a little bit more about how, if you're interested in integrating in the Harvard Dataverse for your data management sharing plans, how you can go about that as well. Greg? A couple other resources to come. So this is the exciting piece. Now that we've built the infrastructure, where are we going to go with this? So we're currently have conducted a data landscape analysis. So we need to dive deeper into that to better understand where the field currently is, not just on the topics, but also on the formats, the processes, and what are the best practices for working with these types of data. We're also trying to create guidelines around data curation and harmonization for the field. And this is really where you as a community can get engaged. The identification, development of working groups and surveys that will be conducted so we can better understand what are key data sets, what tutorials are needed to move the field forward, and what processes and harmonizations around things like ontology need to be developed for this field so that we can have commonalities and searchable elements as well. This will feed into our better understanding of what webinars and training sessions we as CAFÉ should be hosting and providing to you as a community of practice as well. One general idea is also a lot of groups are working with GitHub, but people don't feel comfortable with that. So we're already starting to think about development of a GitHub training as an example. Also, to improve our communications more directly, we're trying to develop a potential for virtual office hours so you can get feedback with us, as well as a Slack channel so we can communicate more directly with all of you as the users. Greg? Just to give a shine out to some of the other talks that are going to be going on here, that if you're interested in anything I've talked about, in addition to reaching out to me, you could also attend some of these sessions. One is going to be, as I mentioned before, February 7th, 4 to 5 p.m. This is really key if you want to learn about how do you work in the Harvard Dataverse repository, and covers how you can integrate into an NIH data management sharing plan working with Harvard Dataverse. This will be led by Sonia Barbosa and Julie Goldman from our project. Greg? Additionally, we have a couple sessions where we really want to hear from you as the community. One is going to be later today from 3 to 4. That's more focused on CAFÉ and data management roundtable, where we're trying to get feedback and elicit a discussion on those key areas on both the development of our GitHub, the website, as well as where we would like to go next with some of these tutorials, workshops, and repository integrations. Tomorrow, we're going to have a session February 6th from 3:30 to 5 p.m. This is with CAFÉ and Chords, where Aubrey Miller and myself, we're going to be leading a panel of researchers that are working in this area on creating both harmonization of data, ontologies for climate health field, as well as development of repositories and utilization and access to different analytical tools. And we want to hear from you. It's not just about talking out. We're actually going to have an interactive environment where you can answer questions on key things we'd like to hear about and have the Q&A with the panelists so you could ask your questions as well. Additionally, some of you might receive a survey that's coming out of our data management team as well that we've identified through PubMed searches so that we'd be able to better understand and begin to communicate around what topics and areas we should focus on over the next coming year. All right. Thank you, Greg. I think at this point, I'm going to turn it back to Leila, and then we'll come back to Pat.
Sounds good. Thank you, Kevin. Can everyone hear me now? Okay, great. And thanks everyone for your patience. Hi, everyone. My name is Leila Kamareddine. I'll be presenting on the many community resources that CAFÉ provides, including ways to engage with the community of practice, ways to engage with CAFÉ, and then I will briefly talk about our goal to advance research translation. Next slide, please. Thank you. I will start by walking you through some of the ways that will enable you to engage with the community of practice. We'll be holding our annual conference in 2025 and 2026 as well. This conference is a great example in bringing the community of practice together in many ways, where people from different expertise and sectors can, convene, share the latest research, network together, and have really important discussions. And as Greg previously mentioned, the conference content was greatly influenced by community suggestions, and we appreciate any suggestions or feedback that you can provide for future conferences. We'll be sending out a conference feedback form at the end of the conference. Please be on the lookout for it. And then following the conference, we will start an online collaboration platform where climate change research and discussions can continue. And we're currently working on building a Slack channel for that. We will also be holding online networking events, as well as webinars and workshops on different topics of interest suggested by the community. We will also be starting working groups, which are short-term engagements to create specific products or to reach specific defined milestones. These working groups will be convened also by community suggestions, and they're a great way to engage with the community of practice if you want to showcase your expertise. Next slide, please. Here. So how can you engage with us and find out about all of these resources? We will be posting all of the updates about the resources that we offer on our website, which is climatehealthcafe.org. Please check it regularly for updates and reach out to us with any suggestions or questions through our Contact Us page. And then another way you can stay up to date with CAFÉ resources is through our CAFÉ newsletter, which is coming soon. We will be sending CAFÉ updates and information about upcoming community trainings and resources. If you completed our CAFÉ intake form, you will be automatically subscribed to our newsletter. Of course, you're free to unsubscribe at any time. And lastly, for those who are on Instagram and LinkedIn, we recently launched our Instagram account and LinkedIn page. Please be sure to follow us, and we will be posting updates there as well. And thank you. Yes, next slide, please. And yes, so one of our other objectives at CAFÉ is to increase the pace of research translation into policy and practice through, for example, research or policy briefs and webinars and others. In this conference, we're offering 4 research translation webinars and sessions. You can see them on the slide. There are 2 sessions today. There's also one tomorrow and another one on Wednesday. Please check them out. And now I will pass it over to Patrick to talk about the CAFÉ education and training resources.
Hi, everyone. This is Pat Kinney from BU. I have the good fortune of co-leading the capacity building function on CAFÉ along with Rachel Nethery from Harvard. And I'm going to just spend a couple minutes talking about some of the resources that we're developing for this. So we'll go to the next slide, please. First, we're curating and also developing new educational and training resources. We've initially done a survey of what's available free and low cost online, and we posted those on our website. As you can see, just a little screenshot on the right side from that posting. We're in the process of going carefully through the available resources and identifying gaps, which we plan to begin to fill in the coming months. And so keep an eye out for that. Also, just as an initial taste of education, tomorrow, as you can see, from 12 to 3:30 Eastern time, we'll be offering an introduction to climate and health, and that will include both a kind of an overview of the field, but also a dive into data analytical methods and epidemiologic methods that are currently being used. Next slide, Greg. Another key component of our efforts are to fund a pilot program, up to $20,000 per grant for a one-year project, with the primary goal of building evidence or experience or data to support a larger proposal later on that would be, as I said, supported by or funded and seeded by this pilot grant. The RFP is live on the CAFÉ website. I think the link will show up on a slide or two. Proposals are due March 15th, and as you can see, we're planning to award starting May 15th. We do have a roundtable set up on Tuesday afternoon to dig a little bit more into the pilot program, and I want to thank John Levy and Pam Templer for helping to shepherd this program. Next slide. For those who are funded for pilot projects, those awardees will have access to extra data resources from our data management team, which are listed here, including data processing, harmonization, visualization resources, and also guidance on data analysis and management plans, as well as computational services for storage and processing, and also code development and sharing. So these are extra resources that pilot awardees in particular will have access to from our data management function. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, the RFA is live, and the link is over there on the right side. I'm sure if you're interested, you probably already know about this, but there will be more information provided tomorrow afternoon, as I mentioned. Next slide. Another component of our work is developing a mentorship program. Next slide. When we initially surveyed our community of practice, we had a question about whether people were interested in becoming a mentor or whether they are interested in being mentored. So as you can see on the left pie chart, about 30% of the respondents said they'd be willing or interested in becoming a mentor, and close to 60% indicated an interest in having mentorship. So I'm sure these aren't completely mutually exclusive, but it does suggest that a large fraction of the community of practice really seeks mentorship opportunities, either as a mentor or as a mentee. We are in the process of developing that program, a way to match mentors and mentees and to help facilitate those relationships over time. And so more to come in the next month or two. Keep an eye out for that. Next slide. I think this is where I pass off probably to Greg again. Thanks so much.
Right. All right, thank you, Pat, Kevin, and Leila. So we'll jump to questions in just a second, but I just wanted to close our formal presentation by encouraging you to check out everything that the conference has to offer. So through the Whova platform, You can see the conference agenda and click over to any of the sessions, but you can also engage with other attendees either on a one-on-one basis or in small groups. You can just launch a small group meeting, and I see many of them already in the community boards looking to launch spontaneous activities. Check out some exhibitors we have and the information they provide there. You can look at a wide range of community posts. I saw the number increasing rapidly before this session. And if you need any technical assistance, please reach out to us via email. As Leila mentioned, we're going to have a feedback survey shared at the end of the conference. This is a great way to tell us what worked, what didn't work, what you'd like to see done differently, and including what topics you would like to see in future sessions. And this might be at a meeting of a future year or one of our interim events in between annual meetings. So stay tuned. So I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everybody, and we're going to take some questions from the audience. And have to find my Whova platform. Give me a second. All right, great. All right, so Kevin, this is going to be one for you. Is there a provision for easy linking to other big data sets like the OHDSI collaborative and other platforms?
So we are in the process of just having some initial conversations with other big repository groups, like trying to link with Gen 3, also trying to begin to talk with Zine, Safe, and because the idea is there's already existing repositories with fantastic data sets. If there's other ones that would like to get involved in those pieces, I would highly suggest definitely reach out to us so that we're able to follow up with you as well. But our goal right now is yes, we've had some initial discussions with other folks at NIH that are already working within both Dataverse and Gen 3 and already working in that. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to connect with other systems as well.
Okay, great, thank you. And related to that, so Kevin, I think there's an opportunity here to clarify between sort of what data we might generate and what data we sort of just create an ecosystem for people to share and post. So regarding the wildfire data, will you have data updated after 2020?
So great point. One of the things we're trying to figure out is sort of like, as more researchers create these data sets. So the wildfire PM 2.5 data set is being generated from other groups, or we have one of our tutorials with Prism, which updates regularly on temperature, or integration with things like Google Earth Engine so that we can get NDVI. The updating period is TBD. That's one of the things we want to hear from the community about, like what are things we should be trying to interact with and follow up. Some of the code is generated and set up, especially for the repositories, data sets that we're building. We're sharing that code as well. So if there's a gap between when we might be updating something personally that we've generated, like for instance, a zip code level, PM2.5 for the wildfire, and a new layer that data comes out, our code could then be reused by other people while awaiting for us to do that. One of the key things I'll say in terms of differentiating what we're not planning to do is the raw data for some of these products. For instance, we are not looking to become like another Google Earth Engine or compete with big repository data sets of those massive raster level images or fantastic data sets produced by other groups on various pollution and exposure metrics. We're trying to think about how we can have more post-ready set data sets, and then also provide pointing to where you can get those raw data as well.
Great, thank you. And Pat, to you, there's a question in the chat about who is eligible to apply for the pilot awards.
I think the short answer is anybody who submits a proposal who's part of the COP is more than welcome. We're particularly if we have to make decisions among excellent proposals, we'll favor, I think, new investigators and people coming from traditionally unrepresentative groups, but we hope to really fund a diverse group of new projects.
Great, thank you. And related still to training and capacity building, will any of the training resources be offered in multiple languages or languages aside from English?
That's a good point. We haven't talked about that, but we'll definitely bring that back to our group to discuss how we might take that on.
Kevin, would you say the answer is the same for the data management team in terms of GitHub training and other tutorials?
Yes, I think it's one of the things we're trying to do early on and provide those as resources, especially for people that are in the pilots and in receiving the centers. And I can answer that quick question too,
Sure.
Greg, as I see we got a one from Helen from NASA. Yeah, we're not restricted to just R or Python. If you do go in, you'll see it's very R heavy in terms of that, just because we're trying to keep things more open source. Doesn't mean that if you're a generator of something like SAS or Stata Code or something that might not be as accessible, we wouldn't host it. It just would limit its reach. Python, especially hearing from somebody that's in NASA, yes, the process of data is much more efficient sometimes in Python than R, but we would be open to that as well, especially if there's mechanisms by which you can download and get the data set into like more usable ready formats for health researchers. I think that's where we could team up on those discussions, is the idea of fantastic data sets. What are the most common formats spatially and temporally that that climate and the health researchers are utilizing that data sets at?
Yeah, and just to build on that, one of the goals of the data management team is to help lower the barriers for entry for people that have, are analytically capable but aren't necessarily the generators of some of this very highly spatially and temporally resolved data. And so if you have, fantastic data, but you want to make it more accessible to people, please do reach out to us. We'll see how we can support you working in the ecosystem and in the infrastructure Kevin and the team have created to make your data more accessible and findable. All right, great. So I think there was another question about where can we find the links to the educational and training resources that Pat mentioned in his talk. So Michaela, maybe I can ask you to put in the chat for participants the CAFÉ website where these resources are all linked. And then will you be sharing resources related to studies involving biosamples? Kevin, maybe back to you. Is so we've talked a lot about spatial temporal data. Are you thinking about sort of anonymized health data as well?
Yes, we are. Not just us, but Chords also, in terms of how do you work with these environments to get your data sets ready. While we all have to adhere to HIPAA guidelines in terms of what we can do, we also are considering development of synthetic data sets. While it's not directly related to the question on the biosamples themselves, we are talking with other groups like PCORF about and hearing about how to integrate in with patient level sort of information and what the sort of needs are and requirements are for integration with those systems as well. So the idea would be, we are talking about health data. If this is an area that you'd like to follow up with, I would definitely say, please try to attend our roundtable. We'd love to hear more around how we can get data sets ready for those sort of analyses.
Great, and that's an excellent point that we can't put protected health information, PHI, on Harvard Dataverse. That wouldn't be appropriate. So all the data sets that we are working with right now are completely de-identified or not people related. All right, great. So I think we are at the end of our session there. So thank you all for attending and your great questions. Thank you to Leila, Pat, and Kevin for your time and sharing your insights today. And to the audience, please do reach out to us at any point. We'd be happy to continue these conversations throughout the 3 days and beyond. Thank you.